everybody, and welcome to the show from Common Room Radio. I'm Sarah K. Bazant.
I'm Alistair Stevens.
And I'm Vinton Bain. And
I solemnly swear to do my best every day, and in all that I do, to be brave and strong, to be truthful and compassionate, to be interesting and interested, to respect nature, to pay attention and question the world around me, to think of others first, to always help and protect my friends. Then there's a line about God or whatever, and to make the world a better place for Lumberjane Scouts and for everyone else.
This week on the show, Lumberjanes Volume 1.
It's so good!
It's so good! Vinton, tell us a little about the history of this comic book, would you please?
Yeah, so Lumberjanes is an all-ages book from Boom Comics about a group of young girls at a camp for hardcore lady types, fighting monsters and living out the code of friendship to the max. It's kind of like Adventure Time meets The Goonies with a little bit of Buffy.
Yes.
That's a very good descriptor. Yes.
Yeah.
with a hint of Gravity Falls in there, too, which is a show that I love a lot.
Very similar to Gravity Falls, actually. Shannon Waters originally met with Grace Ellis and came up with this pitch, having Brooke Allen create character designs. The original project it was meant to be made for fell through, though, but Shannon brought it to Boom, who loved it, and added it to their new Boombox imprint, with Noelle Stevenson coming in to design and help develop.
I love Noelle Stevenson's work
Yes.
so much.
It was originally only meant to be an 8-issue miniseries, but it became an ongoing series. In 2015, Lumberjanes was nominated and won 2 Eisner Awards for Best New Series and Best Publication for Teens. It was also nominated for a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Comic Book. And yeah, I love this book. This book focuses on friendship. It's completely adorable. It's kind of like the X-Files in its weirdness. Mm-hmm. It's super educational between the famous lady historical figure expletives and the puzzle solving. It's just got everything you really need in a comic.
It's smart.
Yes.
I love how smart this book is and how relentlessly, densely funny it is.
Mm-hmm. It is one of the most darling, charming, and just absolutely wonderful things I've ever read in my life. I am going and buying every volume of this series that I can.
Every Lumberjane.
Yes, every Lumberjane. Yep, I own them all. Gotta Jane them all. I don't know what that means.
Hey, Vinton, will you flip over the VHS for us?
Holy Mary Wollstonecraft. These 5 young scouts are spending their summer trying to learn friendship to the max, but this creepy camp can't curb its crazy. I mean, what the Sojourner faith is going on here anyways? These girls will fly and kick their way into your hearts faster than you can say, "Good Shirley Chisholm." Pack your bag, grab your field manual, and recite the pledge. It's time for the Lumberjanes, and you're going to love it. Scouts honor.
I do love it. I do love it. I knew that I would, and then I read it, and I loved it even more than I expected to.
Yes.
It's so very good. It's tough, I think, sometimes to talk about a funny book because the tendency is just to quote every possible panel of this entire book. We're going to try, I think, not to do that and talk a little about the movement of the story, but really we're going to talk about the characters because the characters, I think, are what makes this book completely shine. It's just gorgeous. Vinton, you'd read this before. You studied this before. You'd done a podcast about this book before.
Yeah. I think I've talked about it on a podcast. I've interviewed one of the creators on another separate podcast. So yeah, I've done a bit of diving into this comic book. And I've been reading it since I think maybe issue 1 or 2 had come out. I went back and picked up some of the issues, and then when the deluxe hardcover came out, I picked that up because it's beautiful. I highly recommend the deluxe hardcover.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can imagine. Sarah, this is your first time reading Lumberjanes?
Yes, I've had it I've owned the trade for a long time, but just hadn't gotten around to actually reading it. And I'm so glad that we're doing it. It is just so sweet and charming and good and pure. And that's like what I'm all about right now, vis-a-vis like content. So I was very excited about it.
It is a very Sarah K. Pizant book.
Thank you.
Like 100%. Reading every panel of this book reminded me of you. Ripley in particular reminded me of you.
Yes, Ripley was my favorite. I mean, instantaneously. Yeah.
Right from the jump. This is my first time reading Lumberjanes too. I've wanted to read this book forever. We've talked about it forever. I think this is one of the first books that we discussed when we sat down to plan out what we were going to cover in Excelsior. And it's taken us almost a year to get to it, you guys. But hey, now we're doing it, and I'm so glad that we are. It's such a great book, such a delight.
So one of the things that I think we should do is this is, I think, our first time talking about a Boom Studio comic book. So it might be worth telling our listeners a little bit about Boom Studios.
Yeah.
Boom Studios was founded by Ross Ritchie and Andrew Cosby in 2005 after they had been working in Hollywood to develop comic book movies and had reportedly grown tired of that process, deciding to start their own comic company. Starting off with some veteran creators, Boom began making original titles, but quickly picked up some licenses, which is where they really found success. To name a few, Warhammer, Muppets, Peanuts, Pixar, Disney, and Cartoon Network show adaptations. They started the Kaboom imprint for kids and later the Boombox imprint with Lumberjanes finding a home in that. This imprint was described to me by the overseer Shannon Waters as aggressively kind and gleeful.
Yes. I need a t-shirt that says aggressively kind and gleeful. Yes.
It has a ton of diversity in its creators and characters. Boom has become one of my favorite comic book companies with dramatic titles like Grass Kings, licenses like the Adventure Time comics, the Roller Derby comic Slam, the popular and highly touted Power Ranger comics, and so many more, including Godshaper, a beautiful comic that, through my love for the artist, got the Read Brave logo character drawn into one of the issues.
Sure did.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And Sarah, you love Steven Universe, right? Did you know there was a Steven Universe comic from Boom?
I did not, but I need it very badly now, please.
A few different small mini stories.
Oh my gosh.
Really, everyone should check out Boom Comics. You will definitely find something you love, no matter who you are.
Yeah, my recent experience with Boom has pretty much been limited to the Adventure Time comic, which is extremely good, extremely good. And obviously that influence runs all the way through Lumberjanes too. But it's a great imprint, a great company that's putting out books, which I think the thing which people note about Boom is how surprisingly good all of the books are, even when they're fairly traditional, fairly by the numbers adaptations, or they're taking something which doesn't necessarily have the most narrative potential. They just make really solid and loving and fiercely gleeful comic books about it. I'm very glad to have them. Yeah.
Which I should say too, if you really enjoy this comic, but you're looking for something a little bit more grown up, they do have a series out now called, I think it's Misfit City, which is basically a complete riff off of the Goonies. I think. I can't remember, I'm going to get this wrong.
Amazing.
But it's about these girls growing up in this small town where this film was shot in the 80s called The Goobies or something like that. And it's about them finding out that there was a true mystery behind the stuff that we talked about in the film.
That sounds amazing.
So,
okay, let's pencil that in for next year.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, let's talk about the wonderful creators of this book that we have here. First off, we have Noelle Stevenson, who found her place in comics with her Eisner and Harvey Award-winning webcomic, Nimona.
It's so good.
Yeah, it really
it's
is.
so good.
Which would make its New York Times bestseller list when it was released in print. She has worked for Marvel on 4 issues of Runaways, the Battle World tie-in, and the 2015 Thor annual. Her latest project is showrunning a new She-Ra reboot for DreamWorks on Netflix in 2018 that was just announced.
Yeah, I'm really stoked about that.
The swing that I saw on Twitter between the announcement of the She-Ra reboot and the no, but it's Noelle Stevenson though was stark. That was a huge swing. Everyone went, oh. Yes. Which is what Twitter was good for. That live response is very good.
The pitch I saw, I think, from her on Twitter was an epic and timely tale that celebrates female friendship and empowerment led by a warrior princess tailor-made for today. So we'll have to talk about that, right?
Gosh, I'm so excited. Yes.
Absolutely.
She's also partly responsible for the internet famous Hawkeye initiative. Are either of you familiar with this?
Yes.
No.
This is where Hawkeye is drawn in the same over-sexualized manner as many women in comics are drawn. So they take a panel from a comic or a cover from a comic and this, a woman that's being drawn overly sexualized, and then they draw Hawkeye in that same manner, looking that same similar way. So everyone should definitely check that out. It's at thehawkeyeinitiative.com.
The link to that will be in the show notes.
Also writing on this book is Grace Ellis, known for writing the Bravest Warriors comic and creating and writing her new comic book, Moonstruck, which I've heard is really, really good.
Okay, no, Moonstruck is amazing. I've been getting Moonstruck in singles because it is so good.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's about like a bunch of cryptids and a werewolf girl who's going on dates with this other girl. I need to catch up. I'm a couple issues behind, but it's so good. The art is phenomenal in that series.
Excellent. That's Grace Ellis. Co-creator Shannon Waters, editor at Boom Studios, head of the Boombox imprint, which I did a fun interview with on episode 29 of the Read Brave Comics podcast. So if you want to check that out, go check that out.
The link to that too will be in the show notes. Excellent.
Illustrating, we have Brooke Allen. She is known for her graphic novel, A Home for Mr. Easter, and for doing covers and short comics for Regular Show, Adventure Time, Bravest Warriors, and Powerpuff Girls.
Excellent.
The art throughout this book is breathtaking.
Yes.
It's so good. It's so good.
So powerful. It's also so dense, which I just love. Right. This absolutely feels, it's got that kind of Adventure Time sensibility to it where there's no wasted space on a single page of this book. Everything is dense. Everything is packed and just so relentlessly inventive. I love her character work in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Colors here is Marta Liho. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. Known for her coloring on Adventure Time, Mighty Zodiac, and Wings of Fire. The letterer is Aubrey Asi? I can only assume. An illustrator and letterer known for her lettering on the Adventure Time comics.
Also on the Adventure Time comics.
Man, Adventure Time is the connecting thread between all of this, which is great. Adventure Time is amazing. If you're not watching Adventure Time, you need to.
Very much.
Yeah,
very
why
much,
have you
please?
not?
Yes.
What is wrong with you? It's so
I need
good.
to catch up. I still have only seen the first 3 seasons.
Oh my gosh.
Just when it was getting good. Just when it was getting really good.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to do with this comic in particular is we don't get a lot of time to learn our characters in these first 4 issues. We learn a little bit about them, but I wanted to give a quick breakdown because it just jumps right into the action. So this way our listeners will be a little bit acquainted when we start. So our main characters, the campers, Jo is the most cool-headed and analytical member of the group. She is the most by the book of the scouts and has a strong bond with April. April has a flair for the dramatic and a love for puns and likes taking notes in her diary.
Ripley is obviously like my favorite because Ripley, I guess, is everyone's favorite, but April is my real favorite. Like I love April so much. Molly
is shy and sometimes worries that she doesn't contribute enough to the group. She has a raccoon companion named Bubbles, whom she wears as a hat.
Wait, what?
Yes, this is a bit of a spoiler, but I think it's a great one. It's because of the funny thing.
It's actually a raccoon?
I put this in my notes before. I realized that it didn't show up in these issues. It's, I think, the next 4, but yes.
I was already going to read the rest of the series, but now I want to go and read the rest of the series.
She was so worried about the hat in the cave. No, that's good.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And she has a mutual shy crush on Mal.
Yes!
Mal.
How do you feel about that, sir?
I feel great! Hang on, I'm sorry. I feel gate about it?
As long as you're not gatekeeper feeling about it.
No, not at all. Is that a bad joke? Were those all bad jokes? Everything was terrible. Look, I love... Look.
We both have our Pungeon Master badges.
That's right, yeah. Good. Now we gotta keep it in.
She's so happy when she gets the Pungeon Master badge. It's so good.
Mal, despite her punk rock appearance, is the more cautious and sensitive of the group. She often worries about the dangers they face. Ripley is the youngest and most energetic of the girls, often running headfirst into danger without any fear.
I'm loving this tradition now in Excelsior of looking at characters kind of Ripley or Ripley adjacent.
Yes.
You know, because there's definite connecting tissue back to, you know, I think even Hellcat, aka Patsy Walker there. Definitely some Molly from The Runaways there. She's just so good, so fierce, so strong.
We do have a type here on the podcast.
Yes, it turns out.
Turns out
we do.
Turns out it's my type, the character that speaks directly to me.
You are our favorite comics character.
The character, the more
we love it. Yeah.
Then we have our camp staff, Jen, the Roanoke cabin scout leader. She is extremely knowledgeable and can be very stern in her desire to protect and lead her group.
Not maybe great at her job.
Not
maybe
the best.
Fantastic.
But I appreciate a lot of heart, and she's trying. She is trying.
Not enough to look at a map of local rivers, for example, before taking the girls on.
Well, okay, but I mean, like, would they have had like the sea monster on the map?
Well, it's more the waterfall, I think, that's the problem there.
Okay.
But yes.
Then we have Rosie, the camp scoutmaster, an easygoing tattooed woman who enjoys wood carving. She seems to know more about the mysterious events surrounding the camp than she is willing to reveal.
Is Rosie the perfect synthesis of Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
Nailed
her.
it.
She's so good.
Yes.
That last beat when the girls are leaving her cabin after their first night's adventures and she says, come by my table at breakfast tomorrow, I'll give you your up all night badge. It's so good. It's
very good.
I want to ask before we go any further here.
You
did you guys ever go to camp? Because I never had that. I'm British, so I never had that experience. We don't have this kind of camp.
In
not
Britain?
This kind of camp.
Okay.
No, this kind of summer camp tradition is not something that I've ever experienced. Did you go to camp when you were kids?
I went to like a 2-day camp when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. Mostly all I remember is learning that I could pour sugar on my Frosted Flakes. That was what I really took away from that experience.
We were so concerned with whether we could. We never stopped to think about whether we should.
That's also when I got into playing magic cards because my grandma thought it would be fun to send me a package while I was away at camp for 2 days. It might have been like 3 or 4, but I swear there's no way it was a week. But I got a box and everyone was like, what's in there? It's just like candy and Magic the Gathering cards. And I was like, cool. So I learned to play, and then I took them to school, and they were stolen, and I never played Magic again. Next week, I played Magic for 4 days.
It's the opposite of an origin story. I don't love that.
I mean, that's the origin story for a villain. Yeah, absolutely.
That's how Victor Von Doom got started.
I guess so.
I also got for church, I volunteered at the youth group for a while, and we took them to a summer camp, and I got to be a leader of the summer camp, and that was a lot of fun because those kids were a lot more into playing sports and stuff than I was. So I just go and watch them compete in volleyball very angrily.
Oh my gosh, church kids at church camp doing volleyball, they love nothing more. They are so weirdly, fiercely intense about the summer camp volleyball games. It is wild.
Wow. We also had all the really rough kids with piercings and tattoos who were doing drugs and stuff. So we always had to be really careful with them around the other camp kids because the other camp kids were very straight-laced.
Oh boy.
We would sneak our kids off of the campus just so that they could smoke cigarettes because they needed their fix so bad and we didn't want them getting into fights with the other kids.
Oh wow.
So we would just be like, hey, come get in the car. We'll drive you somewhere so you can smoke.
That's a comic book right there.
It is.
I want that comic book, please. Yeah.
I never went to a traditional overnight just canoeing and making leather goods summer camp.
Not a lot of macrame.
No, almost zero macrame. In fact, I never made a friendship bracelet in my life. Actually.
Well, now I know what we're doing after the show.
I guess so. Yeah. But I did go to church camp starting in 7th grade, and then I was ended up being a sponsor, and then of course I worked at a year-round camp for 5 years. So I think personally got the best possible experience.
Does this feel true to your camp experience? Not the, monster part or the mysterious clues and underground death traps part.
I mean, you've gotta sometimes bring the fun when you are working for 18 hours solid in the kitchen, and you just gotta be well, I'm cooking up all of this rice because it's filled with tiny Cthulhus.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
The important thing is a rich internal life. You gotta just let your imagination go. Yeah. Okay, I'm into that.
All right, let's run through this story. So starting with issue 1, and here in the trades, there is at the beginning of each issue, it gives a badge and a little quote from the book. Those aren't any individual issues. Okay. I don't think. I don't have any of the individual issues to check, so we'll find out. But issue 1 is the Up All Night badge, and it says, learn what goes bump in the night. And if we remember from last episode, that's us.
We bump that.
We are it.
I still want to make just Excelsior camp badges now. I know that's totally cribbing from Lumberjanes at this point, but I really want that thing.
We could make a bunch of pins.
Pins would be very good.
They make a lot of these badges, I think, that you can buy, perhaps. I remember seeing them somewhere. I don't remember if it's actually them or not, but I know fans send them badge ideas all the time. And so they're just all these different. I think Kate Leth has even made some badges for them.
Oh, probably so.
I know someone else. I think it's Kate Leth.
I would straight up get the Punch and Master badge. I want that thing very badly.
So starting our story, April wanders through a dark forest in a red hood with a flashlight. A shadowy, four-eyed creature creeps up on her, but it just turns out to be Mal and Molly.
We jump right into it in this book.
Yep.
Right. Just immediately
we waste
in the
no
action.
time,
It's
seriously.
So
it's instantaneous, pretty much.
We jump right in with the phrase, what in the Joan Jet are you doing? They, along with Joe, are on a stealth mission looking for something, but they are ambushed by three-eyed foxes. In defense, Mal calls for the Little Red formation, with April crying out, "To grandmother's house we go!" And they begin to fight. As the group is circled, Ripley swings in, joining the fray and yelling, "What whacked up eyes you have! All the better to punch you in!"
Yeah! And this is when I immediately fell in love with Ripley.
Yeah, no, it's all there. That page, I think, is your Patronus, Sarah.
Yes.
It's just that, what whacked up eyes you have, all the better to punch you in. Yeah, yipe. And then, what the junk?
What the junk is my favorite. Yeah.
The fox she attacks poofs into dust, leaving behind a golden eye as the other foxes let out a cry, sending out this message, "Beware the kitten holy." And they flee into the night. Which is why they say, "What the junk?" And it's completely understandable.
I did not know that this story was going to, I mean, like, talk about beginning with like your inciting incident, right? I mean, we jump straight in. There is no pomp and circumstance at all. Just here we go, here we are, and I love it. I love it.
And all the characters are so tight. They're all so well drawn. I mean, it's a fairly large cast for a book of this length, but the characters are all so distinct, not just in their art style, but in their dialogue patterns. It's perfect.
Yeah. The girls decide to get back to camp before Jen realizes that they are gone. Joe grabs the golden eye, and April writes down the mysterious warning as the girls head back. And Ripley flailing, saying, "I like kittens," is probably the best thing.
Yep. No, it's fantastic.
Also, the exclamation, "Oh, my Bessie Coleman." Bessie Coleman was the first woman of African-American descent and the first of Native American descent to hold a pilot's license.
That's fantastic.
Very good. This is, it's very Leslie Knope, right? It's got that real kind of reverence for the history of great women.
I'm pretty sure that Leslie Knope may have actually founded this camp in this universe, and I'm very into that. I mean, this is like the Pawnee goddesses, but also weird.
Spliced with Ron Swanson.
Yes.
Yeah, it's everything that we want from Pawnee.
As the group reaches camp, we see a sign with the name for the camp, Miss Quinzella Thisquin Pinninquill Thistle, Crumpets, Camp 4, and while it did say girls, it has been covered up with a board saying hardcore lady types, and another sign hangs off of it that says friendship to the max.
Which of course I'm into. Like, how could I not be into this? Yeah. I mean, this is my aesthetic. This is like hardcore lady types, friendship to the max. This is it.
Yeah.
And I believe this is where we first learn that their cabin is called Roanoke, named after the English settlement in North America where everyone mysteriously vanished in the late 1500s. Which is a great pull.
A very good story, too, if you look into the
weird
history of
and
Roanoke.
creepy.
Very creepy.
Yes.
The group practices their ninja skills, entering the cabin, but Jen catches them. They try to explain about the bear woman they followed and the magic foxes, but she is taking them to see Rosie for what they've done. I really appreciate Jen's twitch at the girl's explanation. It's very perfect. It's like a twitch. I could see her doing that in real life. As they head to Rosie's cabin, Jen regrets not taking an internship at the space program and warns the girls that they are going to be in a lot of trouble with Rosie. Ripley dances the whole way, having to pee very badly. Yes. They find Rosie still up, carving a weird creature out of wood. She asks the campers to explain themselves, saying, "What's the story, Wishbone?" And the girls tell her about a bear woman and cat-hating foxes. Rosie asks Jen to step out for Coco, calling her Jan. And I love the reoccurring joke of Rosie getting Jan's name wrong. Much later into the comic.
I love Rosie crafting this jackalope, I suppose, is what she's making here, like a winged jackalope thing.
It's part jackalope, it's part squirrel, it's got wings and claws. I don't know, it is wild. I don't know what it is, but I love it.
It's very Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls there, yeah.
It does look like it's straight from his shop. That's for sure. I love her line here saying, "Feline prejudice hardly seems like the reason to break 7.
8
camp policies, not to mention the Lumberjane Scouts rule expressly forbidding the punching of animals."
I love that that's a rule.
Also, the reason why that's a rule is because somebody was running around punching animals.
Definitely.
The reason
Ripley,
why we
right?
have it had to have been Ripley. Ripley was just punching chipmunks left and right.
I don't know. If Ripley would have been flying kicking them.
Probably so, yes.
Ripley runs to the bathroom as the others explain, where she finds a mystical glowing object on the shelf. Mm-hmm. Joe and April explain how a weird magical bear woman woke them up from outside their cabin with a transformation, lights, and a quote. Swears they'd never heard before. Mm-hmm. And they say, "Joe and I woke up all our friends because friendship to the max, obviously." Ripley dives out of the bathroom with a flying kick at the mention of her fight with the fox. Rosie asks if anyone knows the Lumberjane Pledge, and all the girls look to Joe, who recites it.
Yes. Which gave us our intro quote for the show.
It did.
It's pretty fantastic.
That's the pledge there.
Yes.
It's a pretty great one. Rosie tells the girls that they will need to remember their pledge and stick together because they are going to see some stuff this summer. And then she sends them off as the sun rises, telling them to stop by later for their up all night badges. As they walk out into the morning, Joe wonders aloud, just what the junk is going on here anyway?
I immediately am in love with all of these girls. I love their dynamic. I love their friendship. I'm so interested to know what's going to happen. I mean, like, this comic caught me, like, grabbed me by the wrist and dragged me into the world so intensely and so fiercely and so immediately. And it's just wonderful. It's really something.
It really is. It really is.
That ends our first issue. Let's move into the issue 2.
The first issue really does feel like a pilot episode of a TV show, too.
It does, yeah.
Obviously, the animation tradition that's running through this book is profound, but it feels so much like it's structured like a series of Adventure Time or like a series of Gravity Falls.
Definitely so. So issue 2, the navel gauging badge. Because drowning is a scary way to go. The campers have gathered their oars and canoes, and it's time for a river adventure. Jen warns them that the river is a cruel mistress, and Ripley is disappointed that she won't see any whales. April mocks the danger by dipping her foot in, but Mal loses her cool on her, knowing from the Discovery Channel that, quote, river monsters are everywhere and we're never safe.
I love this until, like, just Mal shaking April and screaming, do you even know what kind of creatures could be living in the shallows here? Do you even know? Piranhas, blood-sucking catfish, or worse, do you want your body to be drained of all its fluids?
No,
I don't think anyone wants that milk from a river monster anyway. I mean, that sounds like a terrible way
And then you see April is just dizzy and she's got the little spirals all around her. It's so good.
Joe and Molly already have their navel gauging badge, so they will be captains. Jen assures Ripley that there won't be any sharks, and Joe mocks her as Molly realizes she has a baby's life jacket on. The girls pair off in the canoes. The nervous Mal with reassuring Molly, April with Joe, and Ripley is saddened that she is stuck with Jen.
No.
It is so Sarah Kate. It really is.
No, it's really great. If they ever did a cartoon of this, I would want to voice Ripley very, very badly.
The 3 panels of Ripley on that one page as she's holding up her hand, calling out to Jen. And Jen says, "What, Ripley? Jen! Are there sharks with gritty teeth?" "No, Ripley, sharks live in the ocean. This is a river."
Unless they're freshwater sharks.
Freshwater sharks. So good.
So good. Guys, this just aggressively gleeful and kind and wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. Joe asks if anyone has any tips before they head out, and April replies, "Yeah, don't tip over," earning her the Pungent Master badge.
April giving perfect pun delivery there. Huh? As Ripley tries to race the others and Mal finally calms down, they find themselves heading toward violent rapids, and Jen frantically tries to turn everyone around. Jen cries out, "Holy Mae Jemison!" And Mae Jemison was the first African-American woman to travel to space. Wow.
That's amazing.
This is excellent. Excellent.
Very educational. I enjoyed it a lot.
Pacing in this book is fantastic, too.
So good.
We have all of this character comedy in the first part of the story. Then we get literally 2 panels of things going okay. And then, waterfall. Jen, maybe not the best at her job.
Maybe not.
Well, I don't think that it's a waterfall. I think that it's just like giant rapids because of the river monster.
Oh, that
okay.
could be. Maybe
if the rapids are caused by the river monster, then I will give Jen a pass here.
Yeah, I assumed that was what happened. Yes. My favorite panel is on this page, by the way.
Is it?
Let me get to that. I have something to say about that, and it's right here. Jen gets her boat to safety, but Joe and April are caught in the current against Mal's fears. Molly paddles them to save their pals, and Ripley dives from her boat into the river in Sarah Cade fashion, yelling, "My friends!"
There are actually
Can we get one of those from
2.
you?
My friends!
Yep, there it is.
2 fantastic panels here. One from April, one from Ripley right at the end. The Ripley panel, my friends, is just great. I also have a soft spot in my heart for the first panel on this page where Joe says, "It's no use, we're caught in the current," and April replies, "Yeah, we are."
With her oar like up above,
fierce,
triumphantly
ready to
above
do
her.
it. All right.
And then the girls encounter a real-life river monster, which throws them around its giant, long, snake-like body. Ripley gets Joe and April to shore before their battered boat collapses, and Molly emerges from the water carrying a limp-bodied Mal.
Even that moment as Ripley is in the water and she's lifted out, just says, "What?"
I really like Joe on the shore looking at their beat-up boat going, "I think I can fix this." And then it collapses. I don't think I can fix this.
I don't think I can fix this.
One of the things that I really love about the art in this comic is the way that one of the panels is often just the full page background. And the other panels are on top of that. So, for example, here in some of these pages, you see a bunch of trees in the background coming out from one of the panels and the river monster's body curling around the panels as one of the background panels there. So it's just full page. You see like the snake-like body. Yeah. It's really well done.
It's a really neat conceit to do.
It does feel like it's kind of Boomhouse style, right? I've seen this done in the Adventure Time comics too, and it's a very effective way of giving us a broader sense of the world.
Sure. Mal isn't breathing, and the girls try CPR, but it doesn't seem to be working. I really like this back and forth they have. How do you do CPR? I think it involves smooching.
Yeah, definitely smooching.
Well, how will that help?
You have to smooch her and blow into her lungs.
Like she's a balloon. Okay, if you say so. And then Ripley comes running in with a flying stomp into Mal's gut, and she coughs up all the water, breathing again. But Molly gets the credit from Mal.
I love that. Ripley in the background. Ripley saves the day.
She doesn't even care. She's not getting the credit.
Yeah, no.
She doesn't have it. I just love that you see like her speech bubble it first appears in the panel up top, and then like it continues into the second panel as the text is getting bigger. So it's just like a. It's so good.
I love the exchange between April and Mal. What did we learn today? That our worst nightmares are real, and we should totally be afraid of them because they are coming to get us.
An important lesson for every child to learn.
That's right.
Yes.
As the girls wonder why that monster came for them, Jo guiltily looks at the golden eye in her bag. Later, as the girls wander through the woods, Ripley gets hungry and pulls out a candy bar she's been hiding.
Keeping that?
But a three-eyed eagle swoops in and steals it.
No! Candy bar!
Give me back my candy bar, you dumb eagle!
Ripley climbs a tree chasing it, and from the top, she spies a lighthouse in the distance before falling into Jo's arms when a cave mysteriously opens up right beside the girls. Mm-hmm. As the girls wonder if they should enter, Ripley dives in head first. The other girls follow in suit, sliding serpentine down into the earth, where they crash into a temple-looking room with a giant mythological statues and glowing crystals. And Jo says, okay, so there's just like no chance of us having a normal summer, is there?
I love the little shrug shared between Jo and April there, and then April cannonballing into the cave. April's secretly my favorite.
You guys, I think we should just narrate comics and you guys just do the voices that I narrate.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, I know that we said we weren't just going to quote this whole comic. Sorry, not sorry.
No, it's so hard to discuss a comic like this and not just do that because every line of dialogue is so good. Yeah.
Hey, this is just all for Sheepa, who doesn't read comics.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
This takes us to issue 3, Everything Under the Sum badge. Math leads to a basic understanding of life. The girls worry about how they would get out of the cave, while Ripley makes adorably funny faces in the crystals.
And I love all of the dialogue right here. It's just Mal, this is bad. This is very bad. This is definitely the most bad thing. I love the writing throughout this entire book. Like, it speaks to me on a deeply spiritual level. Yeah.
April takes one of the glowing crystals, which also apparently levitates, to light their way. And here, Jo asks, what do you think all this is? I mean, who put this tunnel here and why? And Ripley says, I bet it was the Holy Kitten. Ripley is the perfect little cinnamon roll. And also that kitten, though, that big, angelic, holy-looking kitten.
Holding a lyre, a harp in his paw.
The Holy Kitten that I can only describe as maybe what Jesus looks like in Transfiguration paintings. The other girls think it could be witches or a weird cult. But Molly has Ripley's back, saying, I'm pretty sure you're onto something. The kitten Holy probably has something to do with it.
Fist bump!
Fist bump!
And love it. The little fist, this book is so delightful. Seriously, if you're not into this comic at this point with this maximum friendship, I just worry that you don't have a heart.
Yeah, no. you should consult a medical professional.
Because you might be dead.
Take you over for a heart. You may be missing one, yeah.
In an almost Whedon-like cut, the girls go from wishing they could see just anything in the dark cave to a room being lit up and a giant Greek-looking statue telling them that they can only pass if they beat him in a feat of strength.
My job
in this
podcast is apparently just to read out all of April's lines. But yeah, it would be cool if we could see literally any object right now.
She's so good. No, no. Everybody is amazing and great. I love all of them. Yes.
But you're right. Talking statues.
Yeah, I see it, Ripley.
they are specifically challenged to an arm wrestling match, and April confidently volunteers.
Okay, so here is what I think is my favorite thing about April. She looks like she would be the girliest girl and like very much like a Daphne from Scooby-Doo sort of like aesthetic and like style. But like, spoiler alert, she beats this statue in an arm wrestling contest because she's amazing. And she like no fear from any of these guys. Well, I mean, obviously Mal was a little bit afraid of the river earlier, but like just... I love that, like, they're all very different styles and aesthetics, and they're not stereotypical at all, and I adore this.
Yeah, it's a very good call to pull out the Daphne look, because she does. She's wearing purple, she has red hair, and she's got the green kerchief.
So,
it's very much so true.
Definitely that archetype, but I haven't thought about. Like no Daphne I've ever seen. This does inspire me to go and read those new Scooby-Doo books that I've heard so many good things about. Yes.
I really like the statue here saying, but you are the smallest of your friends, which isn't even true, actually.
No, Ripley's shorter.
Your arms are like little twigs. And she goes, dude, we get it. I have twig arms. We're going to do this? And she breaks his arm off.
Just snaps it right off.
Reminding him that it's all about leverage. As Ripley asks for April to teach her, she says, well, I could teach you, but I'd have to charge.
That's a reference, right? Like, that's definitely definite milkshake reference. Good.
The group goes through a door and trips a booby trap. Arrows fly out all around them, and they flee to safety, where Molly exhaustedly leans on what turns out to be a creepy Owlman statue that comes to life and attacks them. Mal fastball specials Ripley, who kicks the Owlman in the face, KOing it.
I mentioned when we were talking about this before we started recording that this was the page that made me get up from my chair and just walk around the room a little bit. I just had to express some things, you guys, because of how much I so love Ripley being used for the fastball special.
Listen, you can admit it. You got up, found one of the boys like stuffed animals and fastball specialed it.
I found one of the boys. And just, hey, Raya, fastball special.
Fastball special. I'm right into the couch.
Well, you guys are both very big, strong men, and I'm a relatively slight woman. I feel like we can do this to me.
Yeah. Let's do it.
We got to practice.
It's a video. Head on over to patreon.com/CommonRadio.
For our listeners who are unaware, the fastball special is a popular tag team superhero move where one hero throws the other at a target. It actually dates back to at least 1958 DC Comics team up in Adventure Comics 253 where Superboy throws Robin, but the maneuver was popularized by the X-Men where Colossus would often hurl Wolverine at the baddies.
This is preposterous. I had no idea that the fastball special, as a named move no less, predates Colossus and Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's named. I went to look it up before we recorded. I saw this information online, and I don't see them naming it in that comic. I think it's just the idea of one superhero throwing another at a bad guy. I think the X-Men actually named it, and it wasn't even named in the first time of the period in X-Men. I think it was called Maneuver Number 7 or something like that, is what Colossus says. But it later became known as the fastball special.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's iconically used over and over.
Of course, appropriate because the X-Men played a lot of baseball during that period.
They absolutely
that was
Wait,
a down
really?
issue. Yeah.
They are back to doing that in X-Men Gold.
Oh, I'm so glad they played basketball for a little while, which is just
not
weird. That's not an X-Men thing.
Listen, I'm not a sports person. I have no preference sports-wise, but the X-Men play baseball.
Yeah, they
softball,
super
baseball.
do. Yes. You're looking appalled, Sarah.
I just didn't know that this was a thing, and I'm very confused.
What are you going to do when you're hanging out at the X Mansion? You have all those people.
I don't know, like play with your powers? Like,
there are
whole play baseball.
Whole issues of the Claremont run in the 80s, which are just the X-Men playing baseball.
They're just playing baseball and like just talking about stuff?
But like using their powers. So it's like, it's kind of like that scene in Twilight.
Kind of, so Twilight cribbed this from X-Men.
Almost every time someone goes, we're not supposed to be using powers, as all of them are using their powers.
Yes.
Almost every time.
I'm going to draw a cartoon of the three of us with you two hurling me back and forth, and it's just going to say Maneuver Number 7.
I want that so much.
Yeah.
Can you, in the last panel, be pulling a Ripley and just saying, I'm the best fastball?
I am the best fastball.
I really are.
In a ball shape. I'm the best fastball.
This is such a simple thing, but I love the way the girls talk to each other throughout this book. I love how supportive they are. We just got through the April arm wrestling scene, and everyone is so supportive of her after that. And then, I'm the best fastball. You really are. It's so cute. It's so darling.
Mal takes a gem from the statue's chest and fits it into a locked door, opening it, saying, after you, my lieges. And April says, you're a lumber genius, Mal. Again with those puns. The Owlman statue angrily squawks and slams the door behind them, which I only say because it's hilarious to me.
First of all, it's hysterical. Secondly, what's the situation with Owlman statue? Like, are we ever going to learn? I don't think we are, and I think that's the right I called? Like, it just says awk, 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 but you know he's screaming, stay out of my crypt, you kids.
I have just realized what I want more than anything else in the world. More than more Lumberjanes the comic book, what I really want is Lumberjanes the D&D module. Yes. I want to play this game with you fine folks.
Oh, man. Yes! Okay, no, we can do that.
Yeah,
yes,
we can make that happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Another door ahead begins sliding shut as the girls rush under it, and Molly, Indiana Jones, is her raccoon hat, and Mal,
which it turns out is a real raccoon, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, spoilers. And Mal gets a rough bruise rushing in to help her, and I love the scene where Mal's just like, it's just a bruise, and she looks like proud of it.
Yep.
And Molly's like, call a medic, call the Coast Guard, we might have to amputate, someone bring me some ice and a bandage, and also a candy bar to keep her blood sugar up, and in case she's hungry. Total panic.
So good.
In the next room, they find a slew of numbered pedestals as stepping stones in a chasm on their path. Ripley characteristically rushes out and steps on the wrong one, being pulled back by April before falling. Ripley rushes in, yeah. Joe realizes it's a Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the last two numbers added together, declaring Fibonacci, and April says, hey, watch your language.
Fibonacci would be an excellent substitute swear word.
It would
be a very good swear word.
And it's also, this is one of those like really old tropey jokes that gets used a lot where somebody says a word that other people don't know and they say, watch your language, but it's always funny.
No, you're right. It's always a good joke.
Never fails. I love how proud Jo is of herself at the end, kicking her foot up when she gets through the whole sequence. She's like, and there's the right number.
With a little ding sound effect as she jumps in the last one.
There's also a really sweet moment after this where Mal checks on Molly, who is looking down and talks with her about what she's feeling. Yeah. I really love that this, in a book about friendship, we see things like this. This stuff is important, and this is good lessons to learn if you're wanting to teach younger girls how to do friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, this is very Adventure Time. Just this beat of, hey, you doing all right? Yeah, there's just a lot happening in my brain right now.
Yeah.
It just feels very much like a Finn and Jake moment.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, totally. Also, Molly is still wearing the baby life jacket.
She is. It's the best thing. Yep.
Just in case. The girls find a message on the wall, but it doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to read this message really quick because
Please
it is bazonkers.
Which I don't think that all of it's on any of the panels. You'll see like some of the lines pop up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So here's everything that I can find. Everyone throwing skis, a wet bovine tile, pee on seams, I overlie our sky, a nut torn, either tot oot.
Yep,
there it is.
And I didn't have the time to decipher all of it. They only decipher 2 lines of it here in the comic. But if you know the translations of all these phrases, get into contact with us.
This is maybe the most Gravity Falls thing that I've seen in the book, because Gravity Falls would stuff the episodes, and particularly the closing credits, full of ciphers that could be solved by the viewers. If you guys haven't watched Gravity Falls and you like Lumberjanes, what are you doing? Right. What are you doing with your lives?
5 minutes
if
of
you
Gravity
like this,
Falls.
you will love Gravity Falls.
The great thing about Gravity Falls is that it runs for 2 seasons. It took forever to be released because Disney XD would put out 2 episodes here, and then there would be a 3-month hiatus before 2 more episodes came out. It was impossible to watch as it was coming out, but now the whole thing is finished. It runs 2 seasons and tells a complete story from the first episode to the last.
Excellent.
It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. That should be your next
I guess so, yeah, now that I'm waiting on more Steven Universe.
Yes. For anyone who loves Steven Universe Adventure Time or this comic, it's perfect for you.
Yeah.
Jo rules out most of the codes she knows, and Molly steps up, realizing it's an anagram. Seeing that part of their message, either tot ut, is actually the truth is out there. And I like the line, let me see your journal. It's more of a diary. Let me see your diary. I don't care what it's called.
Which she's like bouncing with glee. Yes. She's so excited.
And it flips what you usually hear. Let me see your diary. It's a journal. Yes.
It's more of a diary. Well, let me see your diary.
I love to Jo just overthinking this. Well, a quick analysis as we can rule out any Caesar shift ciphers, and I think the keyword will be too long for it to reasonably be a Vigneri cipher, and it's impossible to say. It could also be a bunch of really disorganized Playfair squares, in which case it's so good. Like, this is the nerd solution to the problem, is come up with the most complicated solution possible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I love that Molly gets to be the one to figure out that it's an anagram, because she was literally just having that moment where she says, I don't even know why I'm here.
Because every single one of our characters gets a chance to shine, and it's almost never in the way that we would expect that character to be excellent.
If you look at the Wikipedia page for the breakdown of these characters. Every one of them ends with saying they're the leader oftentimes when this situation. Yes, like every one of them gets to be the leader at different times.
Oh, that's so
great.
cool.
Yeah.
Really cool because here she's feeling like she has nothing to contribute to the team, and now all of a sudden she has everything to contribute to the team.
Going through the first issue and even the first half of the second issue, I was trying to kind of fit the Lumberjanes into the classic 5-man band structure, and they just don't have it.
Yeah,
they're
like
just 5 characters,
band.
you guys.
Yeah.
They just refuse to be boxed in by you.
That's right. Girl power.
Absolutely.
Damn the man.
Molly realizes that the message from the foxes, beware the kitten holy, could actually mean in the tower by the lake.
But what does it mean?
Ripley saw a lighthouse tower by the lake earlier. Looking back to the wall, Ripley sees a message saying pee on seams and suggests that they just try peeing on things. But Molly realizes it rearranges to say open sesame, and when she speaks those words, a ladder drops from the ceiling, giving them a way out back into the forest.
And this transition to the last page of the book as we come back to Rosie's cabin. And Jen is just sobbing, I'm the worst camp counselor in the history of the entire universe.
I specifically enjoy that the ladder that dropped opens up to a fairy circle.
Yes.
It does,
Yes, that's
yes.
very good, yeah.
Which, for those who don't know what a fairy ring, circle, either way, for those unfamiliar, is a natural occurring ring of mushrooms that's inspired tons of folklore. So I like that. Just a subtle nod to something magical happening.
Actually, one fungal colony beneath the earth that puts up.
Gross. What?
Yeah, I'm sorry for saying the words fungal colony on the podcast. I feel bad about that.
No, Alistair, it's fairies.
Yes. Sorry,
a fairy colony.
Fairies did it, yes.
It's not gross what you said.
It's not gross like what you said. It's magical and precious.
So yeah, the girls do return to Rosie's office where her and a very distraught Jen are talking to a park ranger about the missing girls, and Jen exclaims, "Where the Phyllis Wheatley were you?" Wheatley was the first published African-American female poet.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Beautiful. Yes. There was a big snaky guy and I was a fastball. I want to just hold Ripley. I need a tiny Ripley that lives in my
explanation
pocket.
of what just happened.
Yeah,
Ripley.
no, that's it. That's the whole story. Good job.
Yep, I thought you were dead, you little twerps.
Well, that's what we can. I guess the important thing is you're safe now, but if you ever make me think you're dead again, I will find you and make you actually dead.
And Rosie in the background ripping up the Rangers report of the missing campers.
So good.
Rosie tells them that the punishment for ditching their counselor is moose stable duty, which gets cries of argument from all of them except Ripley, who excitedly cries, "Yay, mooses!" while being carried out by Jen.
I carry toddlers like that, by the way.
She's just like planked out with her arms and legs stretched out, like excited, being carried away.
I think I like this book the most, you guys. I think I like this book the most. We've been talking here on Excelsior about coming back to some of the things that we've discussed here in our first year and doing volume 2 of some stories.
We are going to have to do volume 2.
We definitely need to do volume 2 of Lumberjanes. Like if we didn't already have plans for next week, I would say volume 2 of Lumberjanes.
The next 4 issues are definitely good too because it wraps up some of the story because this was meant to be only an 8-issue story.
Oh, interesting.
This all takes us to issue 4, the Robin Hood badge. A sharp eye shows sharp wit.
Robin with a Y.
Robin with a Y.
Important that
the
we
more
should gender
commonly
that.
feminine way, which I really appreciate. A 3-eyed chipmunk skitters into the woods as Jen teaches the girl about the local plant life on a hike that she is leading much too slowly for their tastes.
I didn't even notice that chipmunk had 3 eyes, but there it is.
Yep.
They all,
Wow.
I think every animal that we've seen so far has had 3
I
eyes.
should have been looking for that and just missed it completely. Huh.
They spot the tower during the hike and also find a giant footprint in the ground. So the group sneaks away from a florally distracted Jen, and they find a mustachioed Yeti who screams in fear of them as they scream in fear of it.
This panel is so good. It's one of the greatest panels in the history of comics.
I love that he screams with them, like they're both terrified of each other, and he's like, "Oh," scaring the girls away with his roar once he gets himself together.
His mighty roar and great waxed mustache.
Yes.
The girls frantically run into Jen, literally, tumbling down a hill into poison ivy, where they meet some scouting lads who, as Jen says, are so orderly and obedient. They invite the girls back to their camp for ointment and cookies.
Wait. This is very important. I need to tell you two, if nobody else, every scouting lad sounds like Angus MacDonald in my head.
No, of course they do. Of course,
Barney
no, they definitely all do.
Barney absolutely is Angus MacDonald.
Yeah.
Yes.
You meet this scout Barney here, and Barney and April, Barney says, "That was a heck of a fall." And April says, "I have many skills. Falling is among them."
I don't know if you guys are going to catch this. This too is a reference. This is so weird because we've kind of fallen into one of our Hawkeye tangents here where for no good reason Hawkeye would come up in every episode of Excelsior for 3 months.
Oh, it hasn't happened in a while. Is it happening again now?
This is a Xena reference. Xena the Warrior Princess has many skills. I have many skills is definitely a Xena reference.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
See, I haven't watched Xena in like 20 years.
It's so weird that this is happening all the time now.
I appreciate
This is my life.
It's because you were on Xena Warrior Business.
It is because I was on Xena Warrior Business, and now I'm just seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's, or there's a glitch in the Matrix. One of those two things.
Yeah, both.
I mean, I almost brought up Xena earlier when we mentioned the She-Ra reboot is about a warrior princess.
Yes.
The boys lead them back to Mr. Theodore Tarquin, Reginald, Lancelot, Herman Crumpet's Camp for Boys, which has a familiar eye carved on the sign and says, "Be watchful, be prepared." Joe doesn't trust him, but April asks Joe to trust her that everything is okay, busting out the secret handshake.
It's amazing.
Yes, it is pretty amazing. April exclaims, "Good Juliet Gordon." Juliet Gordon, Lowe, founded the Girl Scouts of the USA.
That's awesome.
Of course. I have to ask, have you guys ever had a secret handshake? Did you have secret handshakes when you were kids?
My wife and I will make them up sometimes, but we never remember them. We're just like, hey, do this and that. Okay, that'd be fun.
So
I actually did legitimately learn a secret handshake for the sorority that I was in.
Are you not telling us that we have an Excelsior secret handshake that you could teach us after the show?
Yeah, I mean, we'll come up with a better one. Like, it's not that impressive. I'm just saying that it was a secret handshake. That was like how you determine, you could just, that's how you would know if there were other girls in the sorority was that they did the secret. It's like very subtle.
I like that.
I can't tell you what
good.
it is because it's sworn to secrecy.
I like that even more.
Yeah.
Okay, then I won't pry. But we'll just all go on with our lives now knowing that you know a secret handshake.
I do know
this
a
is
secret
very, very
handshake,
good.
yeah.
I may just do weird gestures at you from time to time to see if that's it.
Oh, this is going to be a very good game.
Always wanted to be in a sorority, you guys. So we
Next
get
live show, you're just gesturing wildly.
That's it. Oh my God. I love that the Camp for Boys is also someone Crumpet's Camp for Boys.
Yes!
Tying back to an old division there between the boys and the girls. It's very good. I don't know if we get more of that in
Are they
a
married? Are they
volume.
siblings?
Yeah. One of the
Are they
things
raccoons?
that I should bring up here now that they're meeting the boys that the creators had mentioned in interviews before is that they were very uninterested in doing like a boys versus girls rivalry. They said that's just very boring storytelling to them.
Yeah.
And it's unnecessary.
Interesting.
And so you do see that kind of start to happen in the comic, but there's reasons for it, and they do a good subversion of that trope.
I like very much the subversion that we get just of gender roles here, that
Yes.
the boys are all clean and orderly and
Yes.
baked cookies
It's
and have
amazing.
ointment.
Yeah, we're going to get into talking a little bit more about that,
Yeah.
actually. But this panel down here that we were talking about with the secret handshake is fantastic, where April asks Joe to trust her. Joe says, always, and April says, good, likewise, except for this particular instance. But otherwise, totally likewise. And I love that the friendship trust pact always actually means one friend isn't trusting the other, and they point that out here.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does mean that, like here, April is not trusting Joe. It's
Yeah.
not like there's a mutual trust going on.
This confidence of no, actually, I'm right. This time, I'm right. Next time,
I
you'll
love
probably
you,
be right.
but I am right.
Yes.
Jen is blown away by how clean everything is at the cabin, while the girls eat cookies and tell Scout Barney about the Yeti that they saw.
Also, they're covered in blue spots.
That's the ointment for
I
poison
must
ivy.
admit,
Oh, okay.
it took
okay.
me 2 or 3 times through the page to figure that out. I'm like, what is going on?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Gosh, I feel
Poison
silly.
ivy.
I
That's
thought
very
that
good.
it wasn't poison ivy and that they were. Yeah, I thought everybody was being really chill about those blue spots. Okay. Now I get it.
That's the
Oh,
ointment they
man.
were offered.
There was a small percentage, well, maybe a large percentage of our fan base who maybe have read this and felt that way too. Don't worry, you're not alone.
Barney admits strange going-ons and says he has a weird feeling about the boys' camp director, a gruff, manly man who comes bursting into the door at that moment, angrily exclaiming, "What the bejabbers is going on in here?"
What the bejabbers?
Thought I heard a tea kettle. Pathetic.
The director marches around exclaiming, "Tea kettles are pathetic, girls are gross, the quote, women folk are stupid for falling into poison ivy, and cookies are for weak. That real men split wood and smoke pipes," slapping the cookie jar out of the sad boy's hands and promptly leaving, saying, "I'm going to go catch a fish by wrestling it away from a bear." And that sad boy is saying, "I like baking cookies."
I am going to catch a fish by wrestling it away from a bear. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Good job. Good job, you guys.
Toxic masculinity in a single line.
Yeah. He's like screaming into Jin's face with spit coming off of his mouth.
He's like running around also with a hatchet in his hand and like a knife strapped to his leg. Like he's got an eye patch.
Jen gives as good as she gets. She explains we fell into some poison ivy, and he says, that was stupid. And she replies, no, you're stupid. It is you who are stupid.
And I like April's response. Wow, sorry about that situation. Barney, I know, right? He's the worst. The girls ask Barney to distract Jen while they sneak out to explore the nearby lighthouse, which he easily does with tea and hospitality as the girls head out.
His tea kettle looks just like tree trunks from Adventure Time.
It super does. Look at that.
Nice.
Wow.
And then I like that when they're leaving, Ripley has a shirt full of cookies. And Joe says, Ripley, how many cookies did you take?
All of them.
It's the only acceptable response.
It is. They find the Yeti again, guarding the lighthouse and talking to two other Yetis, saying, humans are so gross. They almost touched me. And then arguing over whose turn it is to listen to the Walkman that they found.
April gets another great line. We want to go inside the lighthouse, so you're going to let us go inside the lighthouse, or else some butts are going to get kicked. Your butts, specifically, by us. We're going to kick your butts.
Yes.
April's so good.
When that doesn't work, Ripley offers them the cookies she took. Hey, jerks, let us in your tower and you can have all my cookies. And April intercedes with a whisper. There's a pause. You can have some of my cookies. Which the Yetis totally accept gladly. At the top of the tower, they find a golden bow and golden arrows. The girls take it, equipping it with Molly, the only one of them who has earned her Robin Hood badge.
Yes.
And leave a note of apology for taking the bow and promising to bring it back when they solve the mysteries.
We scratched out, borrowed your bow. Sorry, we'll bring it back when we solve the mystery. XOXOXO, the Lumberjanes. Good.
It's set down with cookies.
Good.
As placeholders on the corners
The
of the
love
paper.
heart cookies that the boys made.
They have hearts on them.
Everyone is so sweet.
Meanwhile, back at camp, Barney continues to distract. And Jen says, "Oh, Barney, what a wonderful and lengthy story." But then she asks about her campers, and Barney looks a bit guilty as he tries to think of an answer. And she says, "Are you kidding me right now?" At that moment, the boys begin to transform into a rage trance and yell, "Seize her!" coming after Jen, who brilliantly distracts them by spilling beads all over the floor that they have to clean up because of their cleanliness.
Yes.
Oh, what did you do that for?
Good callback to ancient Chinese traditions of vampires here. This is one way that you can escape from vampires is by casting things in their path, because they'll be obliged to, in some traditions, pick them up and make things orderly, and in some traditions count them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was vampires. I did know that this was one of the ways that you could tell changeling children is that you had to like spill rice or beans or something, because then they would have to stop and like clean them all up.
They use it versus vampires in the X-Files, I believe. Mulder spills a bunch of sunflower seeds to get away from a vampire.
You're right! I remember that. I watched that episode.
Is this like a dangerously insensitive trope about autism?
I don't think so.
Because this is, I could see someone like saying, "Oh, this kid like keeps counting everything. He must be a werewolf."
Well, werewolves don't count.
I don't, a changeling. I don't know. I'm just throwing it up. It seems like it might have come from a bad place. But I appreciate that. Oh no, what a mess. Come on, boys, help me clean this up.
with their horrifying faces, their fangs in their eyes. Yes.
The girls run into Jen, fleeing from the boys in the woods. April flips Barney, who almost returns to his normal self, and the girls flee across a rope bridge, with Molly shooting an arrow to sever the rope and keep the boys from pursuing.
Full-on Legolas there in the second panel of that page with the golden hair. Just really good.
Yeah, she definitely earned that badge.
Oh,
she nailed it. And that's when Joe says, "I think something's possessing them." And April says, "We have to help them." And Joe says, "Because if it happened to them, it could happen to us too." And Jen has a revelation. "This is real, isn't it? All your monsters are real, and I didn't believe you." But quickly Molly steps in. "Hey, it's okay, Jen. I wouldn't have believed us either." And Joe says, "Anyway, it'll be good to have you on our side from here on out."
Yeah.
The girls decide they must help the possessed boys and quickly forgive Jen. On the last page, the boys' camp director has a torchlit meeting with the boys, holding a staff with the golden eye on it, telling them, "You failed me, but don't worry, lads. Next time, we'll be prepared." And I should say the boys are all still transmogrified.
That they are. It's a great ending to the first 4 issues. It took all of my willpower to, sit down and record this podcast and not read the next 4 issues. It's very, very good. I love this book so much.
It's amazing. No, it's fantastic. I just got distracted by the art and just going through and just now.
You've got the trade edition there, and they have all the alternate covers.
They've got all the variant covers. They're amazing. Like I love the art style. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but this is one of those art styles where like I look at this and I was like, this is something that I could do. Like I could do this, and it looks amazing. It looks fantastic, and it doesn't need to be like hyper realistic. It can be like cartoony, but also like full of emotion and full of feeling. And it's wonderful. This is an amazing comic. Highly recommended for any young comic reader or old comic reader every person on the planet with a heart. Any human
being with a heart can read and love this book. There it is.
If you don't have a heart, then we'll spill some beads so we can get away from you.
That's right. You're some sort of camp monster.
So Lumberjanes is still continuing today, being currently up to issue number 44. They have had a few different mini stories as well, including the Gotham Academy crossover that I think we've mentioned on the podcast before. The series also branched off into a chapter book series for kids. The first two, at least, are written by Mariko Tamaki, who I love. She has done a lot of her own comics, but just finished a Supergirl mini for DC that was fantastic, and is currently the writer for She-Hulk for Marvel.
Excellent.
Oh, awesome.
There has been some headway in Lumberjanes getting a movie, but it's been slow. And that was through Fox, which just got bought by Disney for that. So that might be up in the air. We're not sure.
Wow.
I would much rather a cartoon series, actually.
Yeah.
Netflix make that happen.
I mean, obviously, an animated series would be the go-to adaptation for Lumberjanes, but I could see a cartoony, exaggerated live-action version of this. It would be fun. That could work. I could be into that.
No, disagree. It has to be animated.
Yeah, you think so?
Show, like
I feel like if you're going to do an animated version of this, then just read the comic book, because the comic book reads so much. The pacing and the structure of the comic book is so much like an animated show.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of
Sarah to voice Ripley.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think.
We all want that. We all get that. Let's be honest.
I'm just trying to think of like a live action analog that would be similar enough for me to be able to be like, oh no, yeah, you could totally do this thing. But
we've had live action cartoonish movies like the live action Scooby-Doo movie. I think
that's true, and that does hold a soft spot in my heart because of Sarah Michelle Gellar. So
there you go. So we just need to cast Sarah Michelle Gellar in this. Rosie.
Yeah. So, boys, what are we doing next week?
Next week, to celebrate Christmas and before we take 1 week off before we return in 2018, we are going to watch together Marvel Superhero Adventures: Frostfight from 2015, which is an animated movie available now on Netflix. This thing has 5.1 stars on IMDb, so you know that it's good. I'm just going to read the very brief plot synopsis that we have here on the IMDb page just to whet the appetites here. The Marvel heroes unite to try to stop Loki and the frost giant Ymir from conquering the world as the duo try to steal Santa's powers to do so. Yep, that's right. It's the Avengers versus Loki in the defense of Santa. It's pretty great. I mean, it's not great. It's very stupid and bad, but it's also very great.
If this movie does not end in is Tony Stark in this movie?
Absolutely.
If this movie does not end in Tony Stark learning the true meaning of Christmas, I'm quitting this show.
Our main cast, Cap, Thor, Hulk, Tony Stark, of course, and Groot and Rocket, because it came out in 2015. So.
Oh my God. What? Is Groot a Christmas tree?
I think, in fact, that we shouldn't watch this movie in advance. I think we should record this episode commentary track style. I have seen it before. You guys haven't. I think you should go in completely fresh.
Okay.
It's the Avengers. Right. We've talked about the Avengers. It's Rocket and Groot. We've talked about Rocket and Groot. We can just, it's Santa. We know a little bit about Santa here. So I think we should just go into this movie absolutely raw, and you guys can give your genuine reactions to this 1 hour, 15-minute animated film from 2015.
Alistair, how much of that is going to be like facial cues that do not transfer over audio medium?
I will translate for the listeners at home all of your many faces. So,
they look horrified. They've looked horrified for the last 15 minutes.
Sarah's pouring another drink. This is going to be a really good podcast.
This is her seventh eggnog.
Wow, that's so weird. Wow, that's a lot of eggnog. That's too much eggnog. Okay, well, maybe we will have to do that next week.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. If you guys like this show, if you enjoy what we do here, get in touch with us. Talk to us. You can do so over on Twitter. You can find us collectively at Excelsior Cast. You can find me at Elsa Grab the Salt.
I'm at Paper Bullets.
And I'm at Flesh Eater. And remember to leave us a rating and a review, because then we'll love you.
Yeah. It's conditional love.
Plus one.
Look,
yes,
the
plus one
Lumberjanes have
Plus
taught
one
you how
love.
to be good friends, and you want to be our friends, right? So head on over to iTunes and give us the gift of your friendship.
That's right.
That's what
Write
we
a little sweet note in there.
Absolutely.
Just quote your favorite line from Lumberjanes. And
Also
that would
acceptable.
be great.
Then you'll get a +2.
I will also give out Pungent Master badges to anyone who writes a really good pun in an iTunes review.
Yes.
We're making promises that I don't know if we can keep, but that's fine. That's how we do here on the Excelsior Cast. If you want to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/Common Room Radio, where Patreon finally decided they weren't going to go through with those stupid policy changes.
Patreon had the 2 doors open to them in front of them. One was labeled "Be Terrible," one was labeled "Don't Be Terrible," and they finally chose the right door. It took them a little while, but it's okay.
9/10 of the way through of the terrible door.
Were.
They spent a lot of quiet time on Twitter going, which one of the doors?
Wow, it turns out that everyone hates our ideas, but now they have made the right choice, and it's all fine.
That's right.
Yes. So continue to support us, please, over on patreon.com/Common Room Radio.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We will be back next week for a commentary track on this ridiculous Avengers Save Christmas movie that I'm very, very excited about. Yes. Until then, once again from Common Room Radio, I'm Sarah K. Bazan.
I'm Alistair Stevens.
And I'm Vinton Bain, and I'm going to go catch a fish by wrestling it away from a bear. Oh, yeah.
Excelsior!
Macho Man Randy